Alright guys, Simon here and welcome back to our Minecraft design school. So this might be familiar by now. It's Richi's city, I guess. It doesn't have a name for it yet. I don't think he has. He's sent me another message and I was looking at it just now. Actually, not all of it are questions. I might, not read through all of it. So he's made some changes. The tower base, he says, is filled up with stone, which looks somewhat more plausible now. It's not, structurally it looks believable. I don't know what that's supposed to say, but yeah, so that looks more plausible as a structure. Not a huge change. He says he's finished the inside of the prison. He's also removed the experimental bridge here. So let's just have a look at the inside of the prison. Let's just walk through. Alright, so there's a gate. And there's fire. There's the entrance. Visits and prisoners. So he says visits are don't danger funny. So you visit here. Oh, that's good. That's quite realistic. It's I know I've said this before, and then he hasn't. He said it always slightly amuses me that his prisons are really, really well designed. It seems his prisons are better designed than his other builds. And by that I mean he seems to know the workings of the prison more than the other buildings, which is interesting. But let's see, so the prisoners come this way. So this is the storage. What is... Oh, it's a shower, nice. Like that, that's nice. So there's a shower, cut hair, okay, so there's the processing. So this is where you go in the prison. What is... Not sure what this stuff is. Oh wow, electric chair. Yeah, he's got a lot of detail in his prisons. Wait a minute, shouldn't there be like upside down stairs here, or at least some sort of support? Anyway, that's a minor issue. You can fit that in there. So just the stairs look like they're floating in midair right now. So let's see, up here are the cells. That's good. I'm guessing there's no switch inside, so I won't walk in. Alright, so there's cells around here, that's all good. Alright, so that's the processing. Cells are up here. And then there's like stairs. Okay, stairs down there. Here we go out to the wall. That's alright. There we go up to here. I'm not sure. Okay, I don't think there's anything. Okay, so this is not that important. It's like a... I'm not sure. Yeah, this is, I think this is more decorative than functional. Although, he's put this here so you can look at that, and then downstairs you can go up onto this balcony here. Alright, that's good. And then here, I think this is like a guard. A guard post, although... Yeah, that's alright, that's alright, it's not too bad. And then up here we have the roof, which... Alright, so there's a roof area. So does he ask anything? Let's see. The only concern is the guard's dormitory behind the visiting corner. At some point it seems not logical for the dormitory to be there. On the other hand, visits are allowed only in precise hours. You get there with the guard who still surveils you. Oh, I see. So let's see what he's done. He's... Visiting area. The visitors come this way. The prisoners are behind. And then... Oh, I see. And then the dormitory and the kitchen and that. Okay, that is... Well, that's actually Okay, that's slightly strange. That's slightly strange, you're right. No, that's slightly strange. Couldn't you have a... wait a minute. Where did the prisoners go? The prisoners up here, but they're only here when accompanied by a guard. Where is the guards? Oh, the guards' dormitory is up there. Let me just... How do you get up there, though? Oh, here. You get up to the dormitory here. Yeah, but why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just, you know, close that off and go up to the dormitory through there? Is that possible? Okay, let me just break your building a little bit. Let me just break this. Yeah, look, there's so much space back here. You can quite easily have some sort of path going, I don't know, somewhere back there or through here, and then to the guards' dormitory through there. And that way you don't have to go down through the visitors area, or the, you know, the visiting area to get to the guards' dormitory, right? You see that? I hope that's correct, because there's a lot of solid stuff here, right? Yeah, I think that would make more sense. And I just broke a big hole in your prison. The roof can now be accessed from the middle guarding point, but doesn't serve any purpose. No, but usually roof areas you'd have guards patrolling up here to watch for prisoners trying to escape, or watch for people trying to come in. So it's just the, you know, just the guard area. Like, you know, an outlook sort of thing. Some sort of, you know, watchtower. That's the purpose, isn't it? Or I would assume that's the purpose. I guess you can have, you know, stuff up here if you really want to, but you don't have to do that. Like, you know, training areas maybe. No, just the guard post is fine. A watchtower, that's fine. All right, so let's keep moving. That's pretty good, I think. Pretty good. Mostly makes sense. Let me make my way back out. Alright, so he's built a little bridge there. That's a nice bridge, I like that. As I lag my way through the rain. So the warehouse, actually let's use the bridge since it's here. So the bridge, it's like that. Okay, so we come across the bridge and he says he cleaned up the mess by the wooden stairs, which makes it look better. So the last time he had all sorts of materials here, like brick and dirt and stone brick and stone and all that. So he's cleaned up that cliff area, so now it's, yeah, much cleaner. That's good. I like that. On the sides I replaced the cobble arches with brick, so now I have more space inside. And on the outside it looks better, more like a building that serves a purpose rather than a building for looks. That it does. That it does. Although, I mean, you can still... I mean, it doesn't have to be completely non-decorative, because there are brick stairs. I don't know what reference images you're looking at specifically, but there are... oh crap. There are brick stairs, so I mean, if you want to put some patterns in the brick, you can do that. You know, if you... well, that's not really good because it's an even number, right? Oops. Like, you wanna put a, you know, minor pattern in the wall or something, you can do that. Nothing too fancy, but again, you know, still brick. It's just a little bit more interesting. I don't know if you have that sort of thing in your reference image, but if you do, then you can always use the brick stairs to do some of that. On the sides, oh no, I've said that. Okay, interior. Let's see. He says, I don't know what that says, but he says that he's gonna have a mine somewhere, and then he's gonna have the mine carts going to his mine, and he hasn't done that yet, so we can't comment on that. So that's the plan, though. So upstairs, on the inside. I cleaned up the... nope. He says the very bottom level is now accessible. I think I'll use this level for actual refilling with hopper circuits. There will be underground rail going from mines to warehouse and warehouse to mine. Let me just scroll down a bit. But I don't know yet where the mining will be, so I can't progress with it. Yeah, that's fine, so he's gonna leave that till later. Now what I'm trying to do is to make the lights function with the light sensor, which is impossible to do for some reason. I don't know... Where is the light sensor? Is that... What is that? Okay, that doesn't do anything. Where is your light sensor and what are you trying to do? I haven't actually used the light sensor yet. I haven't gotten any quartz yet, so I can't really help you much there. And to decide how the boxes will be placed, on the left side you can see some possibilities, but I guess they're not very important. Okay, so you're experimenting. That's the important part. The fact that you are trying things out. I thought that doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work if you do that. You have to have an open space above the chest. That's not gonna open. And neither is that. So you need to... Actually, neither is that. Have you tried these, man? You should try... I know you're doing this for looks for now, but you need to try this because that's not actually going to help you if you want to use this as a real storage. If you don't want it as a real storage, that's alright. But yeah, that's... You can't have a solid block above a chest. The last time I mentioned that the gap on the top level is made on purpose. The purpose is the warehouse picture I used for inspiration had it, so I reproduced the same thing. Okay, but... Okay, and then you've removed it. But if there's a gap in the floor in the picture, you should figure out why it's there in the picture. I mean, maybe it makes sense because they have some sort of machinery or like a crane or something that's in the gap. But if you don't have the same machinery in game, then it wouldn't make sense to have the gap in game. So I don't know why the gap is there in the picture, neither. But if you can figure that out, then you can decide whether it makes sense in the game. Maybe it does, or maybe it doesn't. But you don't know until you figure out what that is. Okay, so that's a warehouse, and there's still some progress to go. So a little bit of progress. All right. So the next thing he says, there's an inn. He calls it the Happy Redhead Inn. I guess it's that one. Is there a road? There's no road yet. Okay, let's let me just walk along here. Interesting things. Interesting unfinished things. I can't really tell what I'm supposed to go to. Okay, so this is like a half a house. Fisherman's goods, so that's like a half a shop. Why are they like half buildings? Interesting way of working. Is this how you build? Usually architects build from the plan, like we would lay out the rooms on the floor and then build up. Because that's how usually you draw buildings, like you draw a plan and then you build the walls and then you work on the elevations. It seems like what you're doing is you're building the elevations. So you're building the front of the building and then you're figuring out the rest as you go. And that, it's not right or wrong. I mean, if it works, it works. But what happens is, if you prioritize the plan, so if you put down the plan first, then the plan's going to work. And by the plan, I mean the rooms, the layout of the rooms. Whereas if you do the elevations first, the elevations or the vertical parts, the walls of the building are gonna look good. But then the rooms might not work out because you didn't start with the rooms. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like if you build a building, from the ground, okay, so that's my room, then I know my room's gonna be that big. And then once I figure that out, then okay, I build the walls. And then I build the walls. But I know the room's gonna work. Whereas if you start with the walls, like that, then okay, this is my wall, but you don't know if it's big enough for the rooms afterwards. And then you try to fit the rooms into the space behind the wall. So I mean, either way, you're gonna have to. Either way, you figure out how the spaces work, but then it's just what you're prioritizing. If you start with the plan, then the rooms you're pretty sure the rooms will work. But then you have to figure out how to do the walls. If you start with the walls, then you're pretty sure the walls are going to work. But you have to figure out how to do the rooms. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a. It's not a criticism. It's not right or wrong. It's not really good or bad. It's just the approach you take has certain advantages and disadvantages. That's all. So I think that's the inn. Alright, let's just walk through and then we'll see what he says. Is that sand? Okay, it's sand and wood. It's not really structurally sound, is it? Unless I'm reading this wrong. Look, columns usually go straight up the building. I don't know if this is meant to be structural or not, but if it is structural, usually that means it's structural. Like usually you want your columns to go straight through. I mean, if it's not structural, that's fine. But usually you wouldn't have it like that. Like you wouldn't have it offset like that. Depending on how it really depends on how the thing is built. But in terms of engineering, it's unusual for the verticals to not line up because there's gravity, right? It's kind of really hard to describe in a game that doesn't actually have gravity. But when you have a solid column from top to bottom, and it's straight, then it bears the weight quite well. Whereas if the column is broken up like that, and you push down here, then it's gonna break there, right? It's a lot more likely to break there, because then you're pushing down on that, and that thing bends like that, and then it breaks. Whereas if it's a solid column all the way down, then it's stronger usually. And usually, lines on the building indicates structure. But here it's it's not really structurally coherent. But I don't know. It's not that important. It just looks a little bit odd. That's all. And stuff like that. You have a column that supposedly you have columns and beams. Like if you have columns here. Oh, you have a column here, and then the beam doesn't sit on the column, and that beam doesn't sit on the column, and so the beam's kind of sitting on nothing, so there's nothing holding up that beam. So structurally, this is very, very strange. I mean, the lines on the building is not. Well, sometimes it's purely decorative, but often it's not purely decorative. It's supposed to indicate the structure of the building, and in this case, the structure doesn't really line up. Right, so there were beds, and then some nicer rooms. So there's like a dormitory downstairs, and then there's a nicer room upstairs. And then, interesting, there's no roof on the rooms. Okay, that's good. That's fairly good, I think. It's alright. And tables, and things. Okay, let's see what he asks. I used dark wood for the columns and bright for the roof to highlight an important building, and there's a part of the inn that is in water, which is made from cobble. Again, I'd like to know what you think about the building as a whole. Well, I've said what I think, pretty much. I mean, other than that, it's fine, I think. That looks pretty interesting. So some of the building is on the water, or you built a foundation in the water, and you build up. The shape of it is interesting. It's nice. I mean, it indicates a high density part of a city, because unless the city is really high density, there's no reason to build a big tall building like that, right? If you've got a lot of space, then you just build out. So that indicates that the rest of the city is also going to be quite high density. And at the moment, it's not quite high enough density to justify that. You see what I mean? Like, it's easier to build short buildings. It's easier to build 2 short buildings than it is to build 1 tall building that's twice as tall, because structurally it's more difficult. So people usually won't build up unless they can't build out anymore. By that I mean if they've run out of space to build more buildings, then they have to build up if they want more space. So, a building that goes up like that would imply that the rest of the city is already quite crowded. You can't fit more buildings in the space, you have to go upwards. So, yeah, that's usually how it works. Although I don't know if anyone else is going to be that careful about it. Yeah, other than that, that's fine. Still, the lines on the building is... I mean, I see what you've done. You've put in the windows, and then you put a square around the windows, and then you put the wood around the square. I see what you've done. It's just not structurally sound. I mean, in the real world, you start with the structure, and then you fit the windows into the structure, because without the structure, you don't have a building. Like, the building falls over if the structure doesn't work, right? In Minecraft, you don't have to worry about that, but then you end up with a building that doesn't look believable as a structure. Anyway, I'll stop talking about that because that's enough. So the roof is, as you say, quite interesting. Yep, that's cool. No, that's good. The rest of it. Inside, the first floor is a pub, second floor is bed for those who can't afford better, and third is a bit more fancy. Yep, I saw that. And 3, I'm pretty much satisfied with this house. Poorly, it's like 10% my design, but you can't point... If you can point out anything, I'm glad. Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say about it. The other stuff seems fine. Alright. So the house next to the inn, he and his girlfriend combined effort created a simple house pattern. Wait a minute. Which one? This one? Or this one? Or that one? We tried to make it look poor, but still not too... I'm scrolling down. But I don't think we succeeded. I find out that making houses of the poor is more complicated than building a mansion. Yeah, well, yes, if you're not used to it, if it's your first time doing it, then yeah, it is. Like trying to... It is, because your instinct is to make things that look good. If you're trying deliberately to make something that looks bad, it's actually kind of difficult sometimes. I understand what you mean. This house is supposed to be a store on the ground level, an actual flat house on the first floor. That sounds like a good idea. I don't know what you're referring to though. Is it this one? It's probably this one. Oh, there's a bed upstairs. I see. It is this one. Material used in this building is pretty much the same as in other builds. Dark wood, cobble. But in order to make it nicer, we use white and light grey wool. Alright? It's kind of a pattern, but it's not really working. So honestly, can you give me a hint on how to make a poor man's house? I think that's all for now. Thank you very much for your time and possible advices. Yeah, a poor man's house. It's... I mean, it's kind of... You kind of have some of it. Now, how would you... Look, poor... Let's not be judgmental here. Let's not call them a poor man's house. Let's say a simple house, right? A house that you haven't spent too much money on. What do you usually... what is it usually like? It's usually common materials, right? So it's materials that aren't expensive. Usually they're simple shapes, or rather simple structures, because you want something that anyone can build. Like, you don't want like really complex domes and arches and all that, because that's difficult engineering, right? It takes skill to build an arch. Or it takes, you need to do all sorts of form work and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, so arches are difficult, whereas basic rectangles and triangles are easier. right? What else? You won't have a lot of glass, and you don't have a lot of glass. That's good. Although you might have a little bit of glass. You won't have too much decoration because you can't afford decoration. And that's basically the simple house. And if you're poor, you're usually forced to live in the worst parts of town. So the dirty parts, the flooded parts, the all that stuff. But we're not talking about town planning yet, or you haven't talked about town planning yet, so we're not going to go into that. So a poor person's house. It's not it's not that poor. It's kind of it's not fancy, but it's not that poor. I mean, you've got 3 different materials there. Broken brick, that's a good start. 3 different materials there. Got some wood. I mean, maybe look up some reference images. And don't look at. I can't get up there. Don't Google poor people's housing. Let me hold on. Let me just try googling some things. What would I look for? I would look for shack. Please don't. Okay, I don't know if you want to do that. Okay, let's write some words. And can we make it daytime? Set time 1 times set 1. Oh, that's how you do it. Cool. So you did shack. That gives you. This is Google image search. Wow, look at this stuff. Yeah, just look up shack. It's awesome. Look at these things. They're like falling over and everything. They're all busted up and falling over and falling apart. A lot of them are diagonal. Diagonal as in they're falling over. Cool. Just go to Google and look up shack. I think the roof is like too thick. Usually the most difficult parts of a house is a roof. And this is just quite a complex shape for a roof. Often with a shack you just have like one line, one diagonal, or like 2 diagonals maybe. And that's your house. I mean, roofs can be quite complicated. I mean, you've got like a curved roof there, and then here you've got, on this roof you have one diagonal, another diagonal, but then on this side is a diagonal here as well, and then there's a shape here. So that's quite a complicated roof, right? Whereas that's also kind of complicated. That's also like one diagonal and 2 diagonals, so all your roofs are quite complicated. Maybe just make the roof a lot simpler, just one line, or maybe like 2 lines at most, straight lines. Yeah, and then the shape of it, just make it simpler. Like, why is it, a bigger square down the bottom and then a smaller square at the top? Again, the shape of it is quite complex, and so why wouldn't you just have a box? A box is cheaper. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I mean, I guess that's how you make things look. Oops, sorry about that. You make it look cheaper by just using simpler things. And again, I understand that it's if you don't want to, like, it's counterintuitive to do that. Okay, so that's the end of his questions. On my to-do list in the harbor is infrastructure, find a way to connect the tower and the prison with the rest, and find a road pattern. Yeah, a road pattern. At the moment your warehouse kind of blocks that, because that's the road there, and then it's blocked by the warehouse. You're gonna have something out here, because the warehouse is blocking it. And then I guess you have a harbor side road there. That's alright. It's not too bad. Find a pattern for the common houses. Actually, you might want to consider like a row house. Is that what they're called? I don't know where you're from. I haven't asked. Like a row house. I think they're quite common in England. And let me just Google this and make sure it's the right thing. Row house, or terraced housing, or the other thing is terrace house. They're basically the same thing, almost. Let me just go to, and unfortunately they're making a sort of a comeback these days, so they're becoming more popular. So you'll see some modern row houses which are quite nice, but you don't want to look at that. You want to look at the historic ones, the old ones, which are not so nice. I mean, when you look at the pictures, you see what I mean. Let me just go with the terraced houses. And images. Okay, terraced houses will more likely get you the old stuff. Basically, it's just the same. It's like they're really simple shapes, much simpler than that. Just kind of rectangles, and just this, like a door and a few windows, and then they're all jammed together in one long line, and then there's a lot of them, and they're all the same, and they're jammed together in one long line along the road. That's a terraced house, and that's kind of like, you know, low cost housing. There's not a lot of space. There's not much garden. They're all the same, and they're not very interesting, but they're cheap. Mostly cheap because they share walls. So, you know, if you have okay, design theory time, or, you know, design economics. How can I do this? I need a flat area, really. Oh, what's this stuff? Let me just, you know, stop here. Maybe to punch out a bit of stuff. So let's say if you have, you know, if that's a house, and then let's say, you know, that's a house. So these are detached houses in the sense they're not joined together. So, you know, if you have that, to enclose, you know, 3 blocks, you need 8 plus 8 plus 8. That's like 24 blocks to enclose 3 blocks. 24 to 3, that's the ratio, or, you know, 8 to 1 really. 24 to 3, which is like 8 to 1. Whereas if you make them a row house, or like a you know, if you kind of mash them together into one building, you can have, you know, that's 1, and then a row house that will be right next to it is the next house, and then stuck next to that one is the next house. So to enclose 3 squares there, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So now the ratio of bricks to space is 18 to 3, or 6 to 1. So now you use less material to enclose the same amount of space, which means it's cheaper, right? And this is basically what makes apartments cheaper than detached houses. So, you know, when you jam a lot of things together into one building, it's cheaper than to have them as separate buildings. Like 4 homes in an apartment block is cheaper than 4 homes separately, because you're literally using less material to enclose the same amount of space. So, okay, that's there we go. That's the lesson for today. So if you want to design, I guess, you know, a poor part of town, then you would have a lot of these row houses or apartments or whatever you want to do, but they're all jammed together, they're not separate houses, and that makes it cheaper, and therefore makes more sense in a poor part of town. Alright, there we go. I won't ramble any more here, but yeah, I mean, just type that stuff into Google image search and that should be plenty of inspiration. Alright, I'll see you guys. This is SCKChui's Minecraft Design School. You send me your questions and your save file or your server IP address, and I will give you architecture design advice and feedback. See the video description for more details. Seriously, you should read the description before you send me anything. Thank you.